Hi guys, and welcome back to another video for Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis. In today's video, we're going to be picking back up the weapon guides for new players to NGS, and today we're going to be focusing on the Partisan weapon for the Hunter class. Just apologies for no uploads last week. I did upload on X, but basically the reason there was no videos last week was because I came down with COVID, so I'm just getting over that now. So if I still sound a little bit full of cold, that's why. So I can only apologise for that. So we're going to look at the Partisan weapon. We're going to look at the basic moveset for it. We're going to look into some of the skills that it uses, the Photon Arts, and just a general overview of the weapon. So Partisan is a long polearm weapon. It's got pretty good reach and can generally hit multiple targets. It's generally a little bit faster than Sword, but typically the damage isn't quite as good. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go over the basic combo. So your standard combo with Partisan is if you do the first hit, it's a quick double hit. After that, you get a triple hit where you spin the Partisan around your head. So you can see it's quite a few hits overall. After that, you get another triple hit at the end, which is a little bit slow, but a bit more damage. And at the end, we have that extra hit as well. I believe you have to use the skill tree to unlock that last hit. But the last hit is just one huge hit that has pretty good range and does a ton of damage. So again, just to show you the full combo. You see, there is a long wind up on the last part though, so you may want to cancel out of that in normal combat. The last hit's really, really good for taking advantage of enemy downs and things like that. You see, it's actually quite a fast combo overall. It's just that last part that has quite a long delay on it. But next up, we have the weapon action for Partisan. But essentially, it's a bit like a little parry. If you hold it, you will actually fire a little dart. So it might be hard to tell what that does, but we'll come into that when we get onto the skills. So, but generally, the main thing you want to know is that the weapon action is kind of a quick parry. So now, if we look at the Photon Arts. So, like most Weller weapons in the game, Partisan has 4 different Photon Arts. You have Cleaving Scythe, Thrusting Javelin, Fatal Tornado, and Triumphant Shift. The first one we'll look at is Cleaving Scythe. So it says, quickly mows down enemies in front of you, charge to launch an alternate attack. So if you do it uncharged, it's kind of like a quick dash in, so it's quite a good gap closer. There's only a little bit of a gap that you close with it, but it does get you in. So you can see I do dash forward briefly before I do the hit. These training targets that they've added are actually really, really useful because they allow you to just practice your combos and see what works and what doesn't. You might be able to also tell as well, but at the top of the screen there is actually a DPS counter now in the game as well that you can turn on, so you can keep an eye on how good your DPS is. So, again, the main use of this Photon Art is just to quickly get in on an opponent, but there isn't much of a forward shift. It is... You would typically use this if you're fairly close to an opponent, just so you can get that last bit of distance in towards them. And again, if you hold the button, you can charge it. And that it dashes in about the same distance overall, but the resulting slash at the end is much more powerful and has a much bigger range as well. So you can see if I go from here and do uncharged, it does hit actually. It's got quite a long range. It's actually quite deceiving. It's much longer than the actual range of the Partisan. So yeah, out of range there. Out of range there. Just in range there. So about this distance is probably a maximum. If you do it charged, you can see it has a bit longer distance. It also, you might notice it also hits twice as well. So again, if you do it uncharged, it hits once. and it's doing about 2,300 damage. If I do it charged, it's doing 6,000 and then 4,500, so it's a lot more damage to charge it. And to be honest, the charge time isn't that long for it. So it is a really nice source of damage, that. Next up, we have Thrusting Javelin. So this is, launch the weapon at a target after a thrust. Press and hold the PA button to thrust until your PP is depleted and throw. So if you just press this, it doesn't really do a great deal. So if you just press it, that's all it does. You basically throw the partisan like a javelin. That's all there is to it. You see, again, the damage is pretty nice. But when you get in closer, there is actually an extra hit on it as well, because you do actually stab with the partisan first. However, the main way you'd use this Photon Art, I'll just restore my PP a bit. The main reason you'd use this is for sustained DPS. So I would typically use this on enemy downs because it's consistent DPS. And it will probably last as long as the down lasts. So if you hold the Photon Art button in, it just continually hits until you run out of PP. And it will not stop until you run out. And you can see that each individual hit isn't actually that much damage, but it's a lot of very rapid hits. And at the end, when you run out of PP, you'll do that final hit like you would have done normally. So that's how that works. So that was Thrusting Javelin. So next up, we have Fatal Tornado. This is attack the surrounding enemies by spinning the weapon. Charge to launch an alternate attack. For this, again, if you do it uncharged, it just does a couple of hits around you. So this is really good for kind of point blank AoE, so hitting things that are immediately around you. You'd see because you do spin the partisan around you, it does actually have quite a bit of range around your character. Again, if you charge this, so it differs a little bit. So if you do it uncharged, you see she kind of does like 2 spins round her, where if you charge it instead, she just does 1 spin round. She does like 1 spin round her, but then she does a couple of big slashes after it. So the charge version is more for sustained damage more than anything else. I would say use the uncharged one if you just want to get rid of enemies that might have gathered around you. But the charged one is good for taking care of mobs around you to an extent, but it's also good for just doing a bit of sustained damage as well. You see, again, the damage isn't bad. Out of curiosity, does the damage differ on the part where you spin it round? So uncharged, it's averaging about 1,800 a hit there. Charged, 1,500 to 2,000, so there's not a huge difference in the damage that hits directly around you. So the main reason I say for using the charge one is for the few hits at the end. So next up, we have Triumphant Shift. This is repeats a combo of striking into the air, a stab and a cleave. So this, it's quite an interesting looking Photon Art, really. It's definitely one of the more acrobatic partisan Photon Arts. So you've got like a couple of slashes first, then you stab forward, and then you just do a slash and jump backwards. So it's actually good for getting a little bit of distance from a target as well, while doing a little bit of damage. So you can see you dash in, do a hit, and then dash back again. The other thing about this Photon Art as well is you might notice at the end, there is a little bit of like a delay when you're in the air. There's a little bit of a delay where you stay in the air for a little bit longer. So you could probably then chain that into aerial Photon Art as well. So it's probably not a bad combo starter for if you want to get a combo started in midair. So you could come into an opponent, then use Triumphant Shift, get into the air, and then chain that into any other Photon Art. So it's quite a versatile Photon Art, really. It's Not one I use too often, really. I would say that most of my use is probably, I would say the charge version of this Photon Art is really useful. Again, charge version of this one is just really nice damage on a single target. That is one thing I will say about this you might have noticed there. So with that first Photon Art that we looked at, if I charge it from here, you can see that it's actually not hitting the second hit. If I do it from here, second hit lands. So it actually punishes you a little bit, the first Photon Art, which was, I forget the name, Cleaving Scythe. You actually get punished a little bit if you're too close to the opponent, which sounds a bit counterintuitive. Again, if I charge it while I'm really up close, you get the first hit, but the second hit just whiffs. So you have to have a little bit of distance, and then it'll hit. It's quite a strange Photon Art, really, for that. So you do need to be aware of that. So that's the main Photon Arts for Partisan anyway. So what we'll do now is we'll look at the skill tree, and we'll just see if there's any skills that benefit Partisan as well. So, as always, the slow landing skills are always useful because they allow you to stay in the air a little bit easier, which is good for attacking high targets. And again, Hunter Arts Avenger. Again, this is a skill that increases your potency if you take a hit while you use the Photon Art. So with Partisan, obviously, you've got a lot of charge Photon Art, so you can get a lot of benefit out of using Hunter Arts Avenger with it. Next up, we have Partisan Attack Extra. So this is what allows you to use up to 4 normal attacks. So, as a reminder, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that fourth hit on the end, the big slash that does the one big hit, that's unlocked by getting Partisan Attack Extra. Next up, we have Volcraptor. So this is one of the key skills with Partisan. So the way Volcraptor works is if you press and hold the weapon action button, you'll fire a spear of photons that will hit the target. While that target is impaled with that spear, any extra damage you do to that target while they're impaled will be taken into account. Then after a little while, or after taking a certain amount of damage, the spear will explode and it will deal damage based on how much damage you did. So, easy way to show you this is, the way to tell if you've got Volcraptor available as well, if you're wondering, is on the bottom weapon palette down here. If you look just to the right of the palette, there's a little white icon here. And this is your icon for Volcraptor. So if this is fully lit up, it means you've got Volcraptor available to use. After you use it, this will darken, and it will build up as you attack with the Partisan. The more you attack with the Partisan, this will fill up and then will become available again. So if I use Volcraptor on this target here, again, you use it by holding the weapon action. You see it's impaled. And now if I do some Photon Arts now, you can see it detonated and it did like an extra chunk of damage. It's kind of hard to see how much it does because it does kind of interfere with your normal Partisan damage. So you can see that icon at the bottom now is dark. So we'll just keep attacking. I think it does just refill over time as well. I'll show you this one more time just so you can see how it works. I don't actually think that attacking with the Partisan makes much of a difference for it. I think it might just be it regens over time. Yeah, it's almost ready again. So again, if we look down here at this icon, see it's almost ready. Yeah, it's just refilling over time, actually. So you can say it's almost ready, and this will light up in a minute. There we go. You do also get that visual effect on your character as well to signify that it's ready. So again, what I'll do is I'll use Volcraptor on the target, and then I'll just use one quick Photon Art just so you can see Volcraptor detonate. So the easiest way to do this is probably, let's just experiment. Yeah, I'll just use that Photon Art just so you can see. So Again, if I use Volcraptor and then we'll just wait for a little bit for it to detonate. There. And it detonates with that much damage. So that seemed to be roughly about half the damage that I inflicted with the Photon Art. So I'm going to assume that it takes about half of the damage that you inflict. There is a damage cap though, so once you get to a certain amount of damage that you inflict while Volcraptor is active, it will just detonate automatically. So using Volcraptor is kind of integral to Partisan really, because it is a decent chunk of your damage. So really you want to be using Volcraptor whenever it's available. So next up, we have Assault Charge. So this is pressing the weapon action button at just the right time after a Photon Art will unleash a chargeable thrust attack. So you do, you do a Photon Art and then press weapon action after it. Let's see if I can do that. So, yeah, there you go. So this is a really, really good gap close with Partisan. So after you've done a Photon Art, you just press the weapon action button as the Photon Art finishes. And you'll dash forward and do a quick sprint forward and stab. It's actually an old, pretty much an old Photon Art from the original PSO2 called Assault Buster. The timing seems to be quite generous on it as well. So again, it's just used to be like a gap closer to get in close to enemies. Next up we have Volcraptor short cooldown. So this just reduces the cooldown time of Volcraptor when you successfully negate an attack with a weapon action. So again, the weapon action is a parry. If you can parry successfully, it will reduce the cooldown for Volcraptor, so you can use Volcraptor more often. Then we have Assault Charge Avenger. This is performing an Assault Charge, which is that forward dash that I just showed you. As a Photon Art unleashed by a Hunter Arts Avenger, it increases its potency. So if you do a Photon Art and trigger Hunter Arts Avenger, then do an Assault Charge from it, the Assault Charge will get the benefit of the potency boost from Avenger as well. Then we have Partisan Parry Alternate Assault. This is after successfully negating an attack with a weapon action, the potency of our next Assault Charge is increased. So after you parry, if you then do that charge forward, you'll get an increased damage boost from that as well. So there's a lot of skills that kind of boost the damage of that forward charge. And again, that's just done by pressing weapon action after a Photon Art. So that charge there. So there's a lot of skills that increase the damage of that charge. And then lastly, we have Partisan Quick Assault. This is pressing the weapon action button at just the right time after performing Sidestep Strike, Sidestep Counter, Assault Charge, or Photon Blast. Causes you to rapidly close in on an enemy and perform an attack. So this basically allows you to get in close again after performing a Sidestep Strike. So a Sidestep Strike is if you dash and then do an attack, so this. So again, and that's the attack, that's the assault. So you might notice that after I do the dash, my character glows purple briefly, and that's your cue to press the weapon action button. So again, so you do a dash, and an attack to initiate the dash attack, and that'll make your character glow, and then press weapon action. So dash, attack, weapon action. And again, there's other ways you can do it as well. So apparently you can do it off a Photon Blast as well. We'll try that quickly. Yeah, so you can chain it off the end of a Photon Blast as well, which is actually really cool, actually. There's not many skills that sort of link with Photon Blasts as well, so that's quite unique. That's more or less it for Partisan, really. So it's quite a simple weapon overall. The main things you want to remember with Partisan is make sure that you're using Volcraptor whenever it's available. Make sure that you're using your assault charges whenever you can. You know, so again, if you're out of range of an opponent and you do a Photon Art, you can then, you know, let's say you're out of range of an opponent, you do a Photon Art, and then you dash in. So you want to be making use of that really to make sure that you're getting in on the opponent as much as possible. Also making sure that you're using your Photon Arts as much as you can so that you can benefit from Hunter Art Avenger, which is a big thing with playing Hunter. So getting that damage boost from Hunter Art Avenger is really, really important. So definitely try and make sure that you're playing around that. So apart from that, though, that's more or less it for Partisan. It is quite a simple weapon overall. I would say there's probably less nuance to it than, definitely less nuance than Sword. Sword is a very, very simple weapon. Well, I think Wired Lance is maybe a little bit more complicated, and Partisan's kind of the happy medium. But overall, it's actually a really, really fun weapon. It's quite versatile. It can take care of things around you. It can take care of sort of direct damage to bosses. It is actually a really, really cool weapon. It might not be one of the strongest weapons necessarily, but I just find it really, really fun to use. So that's going to end it for this video. Any questions, just leave them in the comments below. I'll try and answer what I can. But otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video.